right, welcome back, class, to the second activity of lesson 12. All right, here we're going to try to figure out how many times as tall or how many times as far something is compared to something else. So let's get right to it. Our first question says a second grade student is 4 feet tall. Her teacher is 5 2/3 feet tall. How many times as tall as the student is the teacher? Well, what you're going to do here is you're going to take 5 2/3 and you're going to divide it by the height of the student. So 5 2/3 divided by 4. Student's 4 feet tall, so 5 2/3 divided by 4. Well, as we know, when we are working with calculations that we're going to do, it's going to be easier to take a mixed number and make it into a fraction. So we can do that. We can go around the world. We can do 5 times 3, that's 15, plus 2 is 17 over 3. So this is really going to be 17 over 3. And then it's going to be, if it's divided by 4, that means we can change this into multiplication, and we can make this into 1/4. Okay, because remember, the 4 is the same thing as 4 over 1, and so if we were to flip that upside down, it would be 1/4. And then we can just go ahead and multiply straight across. We have 17 times 1. We can look for cross canceling, I guess. 1 and 3, that's not going to do anything for us. 4 doesn't go into 17 evenly, so we're just going to go ahead and do 17 times 1. That's going to be 17. And then 3 times 4, that's 12. And so we have 17 over 12. And if we want to make that back into a mixed number, 12 goes into 17 one time. And you're going to have a remainder of 5. And it's going to be out of 12. Okay, so what fraction of the teacher's height is the student height? Well, we need to go the other way around in this case. We need to say that it's going to be the height of the student, the 4 feet, and that's going to be divided by 5 2/3. And so we've already made 5 2/3 into a mixed number here, so we don't have to think about that too hard anymore. It's just going to be 4 divided by 17/3, right? We've already done that part. And so it's 4 divided by 17/3. This is really the same thing as 4 times 3 over 17. Okay, and so 4 times 3, that's 12. And this is a 1 times 17 is 17. So for the student is 12/17 the height of the teacher. 12/17, if you make sense of this, that's less than 1, right? So, which makes sense because the student is not as tall as the teacher. Okay, so that is the first one. Let me go ahead and do some erasing here and get this out of the way. And then we go on to number 2. They want us to find each quotient. Definitely want to make sure you know what they mean by quotient, right? Quotient is the answer to a division problem. So you can see here they're asking us to divide. So yes, that's what we need to do. We need to go ahead and divide. 9 divided by 5/3. You should remember how this works. We can just take 9 and do times 5, and that's going to be 45. And then we take the 45 and we divide that by the numerator here. It's 3. 45 divided by 3. Hopefully this is one you can remember. 45 divided by 3, that's 15. Okay? Not that big of a deal. All right, let's look at letter B in number 2. 1 7/8 divided by 3/4. Well, we want to go ahead and make this mixed number back into a fraction. So we're going to do 1 times 8, which is 8, plus 7, which is 15. So this is really going to be 15 over 8. And then divided by 3/4, that's the same thing as times 4 over 3. Now let's look to see if we can cross cancel. As it turns out, yes we can. 15 and 3. This is like 15 over 3, which is really the same thing as 5 over 1. And then here, 4 over 8. Yeah, 4 over 8 is the same thing as 1 over 2. So then we're left with 5 times 1, which is 5, and 2 times 1, which is 2. So you have 5 over 2. We know that 2 goes into 5 2 times. And then you're going to have a remainder of 1 out of your denominator, which is 2. So 2.5. Okay, so let's go ahead and look down at number 3. I'm going to go ahead and erase while I do that. Number 3 says to write a division expression that can help answer each of the following questions. Then answer the question. If you get stuck, draw a diagram, but they're not asking you to do that automatically. Okay, so let's look at number 3. Number 3 says a runner ran 1 4/5 miles on Monday and 6 3/10 miles on Tuesday. How many times her Monday's distance was her Tuesday's distance? We're right. Her Tuesday's distance was more, right? How many times more? That's what we want to talk about. Well, the way we would find that out is we would take that Tuesday's distance, 6 3/10, and we would divide it by Monday's. 6 3/10 divided by 1 4/5. So now we have 2 mixed numbers, so we're going to have to adjust both of those, right? Both of those. Let's make them back into fractions. Let's go around the world with it. 6 times 10 is 60, plus 3 is 63. So 63 over 10. Okay, and then for 1 4/5, so we're still going to divide. 1 4/5, 1 times 5 is 5, plus 4 is 9, so it's going to be 9/5. We want to go ahead and realize that if we're dividing by a fraction, we can go ahead and change it to multiplication and flip that second fraction upside down. So 63 tenths times 5 over 9. And we definitely want to look for cross-canceling opportunities here. 63 and 9, yep, they are going to cancel, right? This is going to become 7 over 1. And 5 and 10, this is going to become 1 over 2. So we have 7 times 1, which is 7, over 2 times 1, which is 2. So if you have 7 over 2, 2 goes into 7 3 times. You're going to have a remainder of 1 over 2. So 3.5 would be your answer there. Okay, let's go ahead and move down to letter B. A cyclist planned to ride 9.5 miles, but only managed to travel 3 7/8 miles. What fraction of his planned trip did he travel? So we want to know what fraction 3 7/8 is of 9.5. So we're going to take that. We're going to say, okay, that's 3 7/8 over 9.5 as a fraction. We can think about it as a fraction, which is the same thing as dividing it by the 9.5. So 3 7/8 divided by 9.5. Again, we want to go ahead and make these mixed numbers back into fractions. So 3 times 8, that's 24, plus 7 is 31. So we're talking about 31 over 8 divided by 9.5. Let's make that into a fraction. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So we have 19 over 2. That's where the 2 comes from. When we are dividing by a fraction, we are going to keep the first fraction the same, right? 31 over 8. But we're going to change it to multiplication, and we're going to make this 2 over 19. And let's look for cross-canceling. 31 and 19, yep, that's not going to work. 2 and 8, that will. 2 over 8 is the same thing as 1 over 4. Okay, so that leaves us with 31 times 1, that's 31, over 4 times 19. Well, let's see, 4 times 20 is 80, but I'm going to take one of those 4s away. So I'm going to take 4 off of 80, so that's going to give me 76. 31 over 76, 31 is a prime number, so nothing can divide 31 except for 1 and 31 itself. And the 31 that can divide 31 can't divide 76, so that means we know that this is simplified, and this is our answer.